All right, everybody, I'm on to book 4 of the 52-week challenge. 52-week challenge is basically you try to read one book for every week on average for a full year. By the end of the year, you've read 52 books. Fourth book was Chasing Excellence by Ben Bergeron, who is a very well-known CrossFit coach. He's coached a couple of the best CrossFit athletes in the world. Catherine Davidsdottir and Matt Fraser are two of them. They've both won the games multiple times. And so it's kind of going through a little bit of his process and kind of what it means to be excellent or chase excellence. So every chapter started off with a quote, and I'll put those in here. You can read them on your own, but I'll kind of just talk about the book a little bit as we go through. So his process starts off with focusing on the person first. So it doesn't matter so much how talented you are. If you aren't a good person or constantly working on improving yourself and your mindset, then you could have all the talent in the world, but it's not going to make a difference if you get to the final top 10 or something like that at the CrossFit Games, and then you crumble because your mental game isn't strong, or you don't have a strong reason why you're doing what you're doing. So that's the main focus that he mentions to start with when it comes to building excellence. That was just in the introduction. First chapter was all about commitment. So he talks about complacency and competence and excellence kind of as on a continuum, and then people fall somewhere within that range. So people who are complacency, they tend to be completely fine with sitting on the couch. They don't care about excellence, don't think it matters. They don't want to improve themselves. And then there's someone who's competent, who's, again, somewhere in the middle. They're maybe thinking they want to improve themselves a little bit, but they're also they're not too mad about where they currently are at. They're not upset with it. But the opposite end of complacency is where people chase excellence and they're focused on a long-term gain. So they've got a vision in mind. They know why they're doing what they're doing. They're invested in the process, and they continue to do that process every day, day in, day out. And that's what is leading to excellence. Chapter 2 was about grit. So basically his definition of this is when things get hard, you push harder. When you fail, you come back stronger. When you don't see results, you don't get discouraged, and you are relentless and consistent. You have heart and passion. So again, that kind of comes from that central why as to the reason behind why you are doing what you are doing. This can be applied to anything, business, fitness, health overall, your family life, if you want to just be better at that. Positivity is another big one. So this is, again, comes back to working on the person and the individual first. This is a huge thing, staying positive no matter what. These were the rules for his gym, Ben Bergeron's gym. Never whine, never complain, never make excuses. So you can always look at things in a positive manner. You choose. A lot of people think that that's kind of out of their control, but you and your mind are two of the biggest things that when it comes to health or fitness, your mind is incredibly powerful. The more you can choose to look at things positively, the happier you're going to be, and the better your results are going to be as well. Next thing that people who chase excellence do is they embrace adversity. So they understand that adversity might actually even be the best thing that's ever happened to you. They use an example of, I believe, Brendan Fikowski. He had an injury in 2013 or 2014 or something, where he couldn't work on lower body stuff for a while, but he decided to see that opportunity, and he had always lacked, I guess, in upper body strength, so he just got super strong upper body, and by the time his leg was healed up, his arms had kind of caught up to where his legs had been before the injury. Then he just needed to work on his legs and maintain his upper body strength, and boom, now he went on to get second at the games, CrossFit Games, 2 years in a row. This is another big one. So a lot of people love to stay comfortable, but if you do that, if you stay in that wheelhouse or wherever you're comfortable, that's not a recipe for improving. You need to constantly be challenging yourself and fighting for new things or searching out new things that challenge you or maybe you're not good at, and that's where you end up growing from it. A really good example of this is doing a cold shower every day. So it'll get you in the habit of doing something that's really uncomfortable. But if you step into that cold shower every day, you've already done one thing that is tough, and that can kind of get the ball rolling, and then you'll be more likely to do other things that are challenging and maybe a little bit scary to you. Next part we talked about was confidence. So this is what confidence is. by Ben Bergeron's definition. Confidence comes from knowing you can control your response to a given event. It's not knowing that you can control the actual outcome itself. So if you get into an event that you knew you could win and you'd be super confident, that's not necessarily what he means. So it could be going into an event that you're not super good at, or go to something that you're not super good at, but you don't know how it's going to end up, but you know that you are going to stay positive and you're going to do your best. Okay, that's what he's saying confidence is. So it's about drive, focus, positivity, perseverance, and grit. So kind of some of those first few things we talked about and being able to maintain that regardless of what happens. Next part is about maximizing every minute. So there's a common, number out there that says you need 10,000, or the common thinking that says you need 10,000 hours in order to become an expert at a certain subject, right? But what about the quality of those hours? So are you just spending 10,000 hours repeating the same? Let's think from a musician standpoint. So are you spending 10,000 hours playing the same song over and over and over again? Maybe it's not a super, super complicated song and you're not challenging yourself. You're just constantly playing the same simple thing over and over. That doesn't make you an expert. What does make you an expert is deliberate practice and constantly challenging yourself with feedback, and it's highly demanding. So you maybe have a coach, right? And they are able to give you feedback. They push you. They're the ones who are encouraging you to keep challenging yourself, keep trying different things. And like he says, you need to have passion. You need to be all in. And it is the maximizing those minutes every day that leads to excellence, not necessarily this specific 10,000 hours mark. It could take you a little bit longer. It could take you a little bit less, but the actual quality of those minutes is what matters. Next part is that people really embrace the process while they're chasing excellence. So this is a way of visualizing it. A lot of people think they need to improve super, super rapidly, but if you focus on just improving 1% a day, 1% a day doesn't sound like a whole lot, right? But if you can go step by step and, like I said, maximize each minute from the slide before and improve just a little bit each day, you'll notice at the start here, nothing really happens. And then after a certain amount of time of constantly searching improvement, or if you constantly decline, you'll notice how the lines start separating, right? It's like compound interest almost. It kind of just starts separating and boom, all of a sudden it takes off. You got to stay patient, and that is trusting the process. And like it says at the bottom here, knowing where you are, know what you want to be, then break that down into pieces, excel at one thing, and then another, then another, then another. So this also comes back to, I've talked about a lot of developing good habits over some of my other channels. But start with one habit, right? Then get really good at that habit. Once it's part of your routine, then you can add another habit. So that's kind of how the process works. And it's really important to enjoy the process along the way too. Acknowledge all the little gains that you're getting, celebrate them, but then get back to work and keep moving. One step at a time, 1% at a time. Next part is about control. So worry about the things you can control and let go of the things you can't. You've probably heard the biblical quote, this one, right? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So just accept the things you can't change. The examples he used in the book was that athletes can't control getting no rep. I guess I got them here. They can't control getting no rep or judges' decisions, or they can't control the events, right? What you can control always as an athlete or as a person in general is these things for the most part. Maybe unless you have a newborn child, you can't control sleep so much. But you can control them to a certain extent. And think about those things. Focus on those things. Don't worry so much about what your boss thinks of you. That's not your concern. Don't worry about what people think about you in general. That's their decision. That's not yours. You just be you, and the people that like you will stick around with you, and you can't control them. So don't worry about it. Easier said than done, though. I know. Next one is being able to turn the page. So again, it's talking about staying a little bit more positive. So if you stay negative, it's going to ruin a lot of things. And again, this one's obviously easier said than done. It's not easy to just kind of throw something out, flush something, and move on after something bad has happened. But one big thing that's really, really good is to do some breathing, some slow rhythmic breathing. Just focus on your breath. Ben Bergeron said he actually does this with all of his athletes. So it's kind of a training exercise before they start physically training. He gets them to sit down for 5 to 10 minutes and just focus on the breathing. And a lot of times at the start, you're going to be really hard on yourself because you know you're supposed to just focus on your breathing, but your mind wanders. It's going to wander. And this drill in and of itself is teaching yourself to not be so hard on you when your mind does wander, and you kind of start practicing bringing your mind back to your breathing instead of just being like, oh, you're so stupid. Like, why are you not breathing? Why are you not focusing on your breathing anymore? So it's good practice in and of itself there. And then the more you practice that, the more it'll spill over into maybe your events or your job or your work life or whatnot. Next, having humility is huge. So understanding what you're bad at or maybe not so good at, and submitting yourself to that every single day and working on your weaknesses. So this comes from, first of all, understanding what you're not so good at and then attacking that weakness. So he talked about 2 types of learners. Single loop learners, the first one, they're the people who always look for like a scapegoat. They're always like, it's this person's fault. It has nothing to do with me. It's not my fault, right? Second type of learners is people who always think that they can change something, and they take ownership, and they're constantly seeking a way to be better. They think there's got to be a reason why something happened, and there's something that they could probably have done different or have done better. They shoulder the blame and try to find solutions. So this is taking charge of yourself and your decisions and your learning process, which is huge. Again, people think they don't have as much control as they actually do. This is one of those things that you can control as well. Last thing was that usually people who chase excellence are clutch, but sometimes people think that clutch means like you miraculously do something that involves luck. Okay, so that would be something like getting a hole-in-one to win or the magical buzzer beater. This involves some sort of luck involved. So what he means, or the counteract that, is it's the ability to do what you normally do under intense pressure. That's being clutch. So this comes through practice, of course, making sure that you know what you're doing, and you're able to then relay that in an extreme pressure situation, because you've done it 1,000 times before maybe, but now you're able to do it when it counts. That's what he says clutch is. So that's all for this book. I'll link this one below. I actually got the physical copy of this one as well through Amazon, so I'll share the link below. There's another resource that I use quite a lot. It's called Blinkist. I'll put that in the link below as well. It shortens each of these books. Maybe not this one. I don't know if this one's on Blinkist. I just found this one at the gym. And then you can sort through the kind of books you want. They're condensed into 20-30 minutes on Blinkist anyway. And then you can kind of briefly scan through them and get a taste of what each book is like, and then you can go buy the books that you find most valuable after that. So if you want to use any of those resources, go for it. If not, see you in the next video.